Hello, class. What we're going to do now is we're going to start adding sort of finishing touches onto our drawing. And this is where I really want you to take it any way you want to. You really might be helpful to look up drawings in books, magazines, or even online and get a sense of what you want. I've had a lot of success with students coming to me with an idea and I can help them figure it out. I can't make a video about everything that's in your mind. Really, this next set of videos is just a step in the right direction. But ultimately, this is where you go from what I have on screen, which I would call a typical Illustrator file, um, to something that is really your own, to using Illustrator as your tool rather than being used by Illustrator, let's say. So you know the options are limitless, but all of those things really rely around a few things of using textures and stylistically drawing and various things, and those use a few set of tools or a few categories of tools. And so I'm going to show you those categories through a few techniques, but you really take it any way you want. So I'm going to actually do a few videos here to make clouds. I could do it all in one video, but the reality is, again, it's about using Illustrator tools that I want to show. And so I want to show you how to use some of the effects, the Illustrator effects, filters, and then I want to show you how to use graphic styles and appearances all on clouds, because they can be used interchangeably and they can be used on anything. So we're going to start here with this video. I know it was a long introduction, but with this one it's just going to be under effects, which does different things for you. And you notice there's two different kinds of effects. There's Illustrator effects and Photoshop effects. We're going to focus on this video on Illustrator effects. So I'm going to make clouds, and so clouds are going to go in the sky. I'm going to do a different layer, and of course, shouldn't surprise you, I'm going to do the layer right above the sky layer and call it clouds. Alright, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to draw my first cloud. Well, clouds are white, right? So I'm going to double click over here and select a white color. Right, I'm going to draw my first cloud right here. I'm going to zoom in up here. I'm going to take my rectangle tool and make a cloud. Perfect. That looks like a cloud, doesn't it? No, it doesn't look like a cloud. I know that, but believe it or not, we're going to make a fairly realistic cloud based on this rectangle. Using a few of these techniques. Again, it's going to be a few videos before I finalize this cloud, but the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to go and show you some Photoshop effects, and I'll run a couple effects on here. What these, sorry, not Photoshop effects, but Illustrator effects. What Illustrator effects do is they just change the geometry of the shape, right? Because Illustrator is about vector. So I'm going to show you most fundamentally how that works. I'm going to go to Distort Transform, and I'm going to go to Roughen. And a lot of these in this category do something similar. And watch what happens when I hit preview. It takes this rectangle, which is still a rectangle, and the object itself is controlled by a rectangle. I'll show you this in a second in that blue line, but it makes it look like a zigzag. And clouds, of course, aren't rough like this, and so my first change I might make is just to go to smooth and sort of round out the corners. But of course, the shape of this is still a little off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with these guys. I might go to absolute instead of relative, whatever works for you. And I'm going to take down detail, and we see when I take detail down, it makes it much more sort of bulbous. Maybe that's a little too bulbous, but I know clouds generally want to be low on the detail level, at least at this point. So I'm going to do 1 here, and then I'm going to come here to size, and I'm going to the size is probably going to be less important because of these settings, but you can see just by changing this, it sort of changes the shape a little bit. I'm going to say that's okay just for now. I'm going to say go with that and say okay. And so what you can see now, this cloud still doesn't quite look like a cloud now, but at least it looks like a sort of bulbousy jelly bean, even though the object is still this rectangle. You see, I can move it from inside the rectangle or from the white shape. But if I want to change the shape of this, which I can using my white tool, I can't do it from out here. That'll just move it. But I can change the shape of this thing by pulling on one of these points. See, that automatically sort of randomizes it and makes it a new cloud. And I could keep it at this angle, or I could change it however I want. So the shape is still controlled by this rectangle when I want to go and change these shapes. And we'll see that in the next video because I'll make more and I'll change them. But it's important to note it's about the vector work that's changing and saying, hey, here's a rectangle, but instead render it like that shape instead. All right. Now there's lots of of Illustrator effects that you should definitely play with. I love Scribble and what it can do for you. Maybe we'll look at that. And I love a lot of these other ones that are in here. But for this cloud, anyway, the next one I'm going to do, and you can layer these on top of each other, is I'm going to go to Feather. And we'll do a preview here. And we can see this number is too high, so I'm going to take this down a little bit. But what we can see is what Feather does is it takes this hard vector edge and softens it out to a transparency, which starts to make it look like a soft cloud. And I'm going to say, I'm going to make my cloud, I don't want my clouds to be strong. This is a little bit of texture in the background. So for now, I'm going to say 0.04. In other videos, I'll show you how to change this. But right away, I mean, that's the sort of where I want to end this video, which is Illustrator effects, which is, this is literally a rectangle. Well, I pulled it slightly out of a rectangle here, but I could put it back into one. Just to show how simple it is. So there's a rectangle. It's a rectangle, but yet it looks like a faded jelly bean-like shape, which starts to make it look like a cloud. The reality is this is still too dark. If I want to affect this, not a effect that we haven't gone over before, so I might just jump in there and make it a little more transparent to even fade it more into the sky, just to give it a subtle look. Now there's still a few things we're going to do to these clouds to make it look continuing using some other Photoshop tools, but that's the end of I keep saying Photoshop, Illustrator. But that's the end of Illustrator effects, so I'm going to pause it and pick up in the next video